Hey everybody, Christopher here with Bangert, and let's go ahead and hop right into our fourth video in the financial report modifications live stream. Today we're actually going to modify a financial report. So in our first three videos, we covered how to modify rows, how to modify columns, and how to do our formatting. We're not actually going to be modifying really any rows in today's video, but we are going to use what we learned in videos 2 and 3. We're going to set up a new column or two, and we are going to go ahead and use some of that formatting to try and pretty some stuff up. So the report we're going to look at today is the same report we've worked with quite a bit, and that's that project overview report. We are going to take that report and turn it into an over-under billing report. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and hop into the financial reports. Head over to the project overview report and click edit. And then because we don't want to change this report, we just want to make a new report based off of it, we're going to duplicate the report. We'll do that by making an over under billing report. And I've actually already done this, so I'm not going to click OK here, but you would just click OK and it would create a copy of it. We'll come out to the cancel and go back over to the O's to find the over under billing that I've already made. And here we've got kind of the general setup. You can see it's the same as the project overview because it's a duplication. We've only got our active projects dimension structure, and we've got all of the columns that were already in place for the project overview, which gives us a lot of the important columns for how to make an over under report. So an over-under report is going to be pretty much exactly what we have here with the addition of a couple of columns. We're going to need to find out what's our earned amount on the contract, and then we're going to need to find out what's the difference between our billings and our earned. So typically the earned amount is going to be the percent complete times the contract value, so that you get what percentage of the contract have I earned based on the completion percentage of the job. So most of the time, that's going to be calculated with the standard calculation of total cost over budget to get your percent complete times your contract to get your percent earned. And then you'll take your billings minus your earned to find out whether or not you're over or under billing. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to go ahead and get our percent complete, which is actually already here. So the percent spent column is the column 12 divided by column 7. So the total cost divided by the total estimate gives us our percent complete as just kind of a standard calculation. So we'll make use of that column. And we're going to take our first column that we add as the percent spent times the contract total. So we're going to multiply 14 times 6 as our first column. So we'll go ahead and add a column to the right of column 16. And we're going to make that a summary on columns type column. Our summary is going to be a multiplication. And we're going to multiply 14 and 6. Now, an important note here, I've put a space in because I want to show you an error that comes up when you do put a space in here, but you want to not put spaces in this list. So we'll click OK on this, and that's actually going to give us a summary column is not well formatted error. All that's going to tell me is I've put a space in here. So we'll go ahead and make sure it's just 14,6, no spaces. Click OK. That's going to let us save that. And we are going to title this column Earned. And that gives us our earned value. Let's go ahead, take a quick preview of that. We can see 94.8% is what we're using as our percent complete. That says we've earned about $482,000, which on the original contract of $504, yeah, that feels about like 95%. If we've got about a little over half complete on, sorry, we should use the contract total. on 26.5 million. A little over half of that is 15. Yep, that seems about right. So looks like our calculation's probably right. And we can go ahead and move on to the next step, which is where we're going to actually calculate our over under billing. So we'll need another column for that. We'll add that again to the right. And this column is going to be the total billings minus the earned, because we want over to be positive and under to be negative. That's where our title has over and then under in parentheses. So if we're under billed, we're going to have a smaller billed value than earned value. So if we subtract a larger earned from a smaller billed, that'll give us a negative. So we'll go ahead and do a summary on columns. We'll do a subtraction. And here is an important piece. When we go to set up this range, it's important which order we put these in. So if we said we want to subtract and do column 17 and then column 11, 11 being our total billed, then we would be subtracting total billed from our earned column. In this case, we want to make sure that we are subtracting the earned from the billed. We'll go ahead and click OK here, and we will change this to be over, under, spelled correctly, of course. Over and under. And then we'll go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. So in this case, we have about 95% complete. We've earned 482. We've billed 504. So 504 minus 482 gives us 21,000 over billed based on percent complete here. We can see we have a percent billed that shows us 98.96%. So we expect to be overbilled. We would expect to be overbilled here. And we show that we've spent 97% of the budget and we've only billed 21%. So we would expect to be underbilled here. Again, same thing. We're underbilled where we expect to be underbilled. So we can see from this, yeah, we've actually got a pretty solid set here of data that makes sense. But we can also see that the formatting now on this report is probably not very great. We've got percent signs underneath our percents. We've got just kind of all sorts of, this isn't great. It works, we can see our information, but it's not a pretty report anymore. So we're going to need to go ahead and modify what it looks like. So let's first save the changes we've already made because we don't want to lose our earned or our over under. And once that's complete, we'll move over to the Format tab. And in the Format tab, we're going to leave our negative numbers as percent signs because that's what matches our over under billing title. We're not going to make any changes here really at all. We're going to go ahead and come to the page setup and columns. And the first thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and take a look at maybe changing some of our font sizes. So first things first, we've got font size 10 on all of our columns. And let's go ahead and actually down that size to, it's tight to read sometimes, but 8. 8's going to give us a kind of a minimum size for most reports. Let's take a look at what that does to our report. So we'll go to the live preview. And now we can see almost everything fits on one line again. We do with the percent complete and the percent billed, we do still have a few here where it doesn't quite fit, but everything's starting to come together with this report again. Let's go ahead and close our preview and see what we can do to make it even better. So the first thing, let's go ahead and pick a slightly less heavy font. Oh, not sans serif. And let's see what this does for us. Well, we've got a little small amount of change, but we still didn't quite get where we want. So maybe what we need to do is think about what columns do we have? So we've got percent spent, percent billed, profit margin percent, and with an over under report, do we need all of this? Let's take a look at maybe instead of including our original contract, our approved changes, and our contract total, let's take out the original contract and we'll reorder contract total and approved changes to make it fit. So we'll come back over, we'll come to our columns tab. And the original contract, we're not actually going to be showing. And the approved changes we will show, but we want it to be one to the right. So we're going to move this column to the right. Yeah, we'll leave this where it is. We'll actually just hide both of them so that we don't have to update our summary here. And we'll use just the contract total. So when we go look now, we should see we have plenty of room for all of our columns. So we've got our contract total, we've got our budget estimate. This is a fairly common layout for an over under that we might have, just because we're not splitting out the budget or the contract, but we do get the revised amounts for both. Then we have our gross profit, profit margin, commitments, billings, cost, gross profit, percent spent, percent billed, profit margin percent, and then our earned and our over under. And now, a lot of the time we might have earned maybe and over under maybe to the left, and gross profit, percent spent, percent billed, profit margin over to the right. But this makes sense. It still works. So we've got the live preview looking pretty good in the web version. Let's take a look at what it looks like in the PDF version. And we can see here we've got the contract total, the budget estimate, and oh my, look at all of these pages. Every darn thing is a page all on its own, it seems like. And we're certainly not making the most of our real estate on this sheet of paper. If I printed this out, I think the forests would weep. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we can do to fix that up. I think the first thing we want to do is on the page setup and columns, let's come in here and change this to landscape so that we are going to make use of the entire page. So let's take a look at what that does for us. We're getting closer. We've got 6 columns here, 2 columns here, 5 columns still here. So we're using more of the page, but we're still probably not getting things done the way we want them done. So the next thing we have an option to do is look at, maybe we can set this up to be legal size. And let's see what that does for us. Oh, we're even closer. We've got everything on mostly 2 pages but we're still not quite where we want to be. So we can notice here that once we move this to custom page size, we have fixed widths on our columns. Let's take a look at this. All of our projects are, maybe half the width of this space. So let's take this and let's divide it by 2 and see what we do. We're a little bit closer still. We've still got 5 columns on the next, on our next page. So that's not going to work either for us, is it? Because we've got this one's on 2 lines, this one's on 2 lines, and it doesn't do a great job of splitting it. Vancouver's being hyphenated. It doesn't look great. And that's going to take us a long time. So what if we set this to fit to 1 page wide? Well, that seems to work, doesn't it? It's pretty small, but it does seem to work. So, you might have to get a magnifying glass out if you have bad visions, but you could get it in here. Alternatives to this would be cutting out some more of these columns. For instance, we probably don't need the percent build. We probably don't need the profit margin or the estimated profit margin. They could be useful, and it could be something that you do determine that you need, but it would be a way to reduce the number of overall columns. There's not going to be a ton of options for how to shrink it too much further. You could cut some space out for your percent columns. They're never going to be more than about 7 or 8 characters wide. So this negative 268.82 is probably the largest you'll ever see on a percent column. Certainly it's larger than you would hope to ever see. And so you can kind of come in and make some modifications there. It would require that you go back and kind of change some of your weights and sizes on, say, like your totals here. The totals have a specified size, things like that. But this gives us a reasonable way of looking at it, and we can come back and start thinking about how do we want to handle our sections. So we'll say, let's fit it to 1 page. That makes it work. And we'll go ahead and change. We didn't like the size of active projects and total active projects, as well as their totals compared to the details that we have here. So let's go ahead and take the totals. That'd be the headers and totals, headings and totals. Now let's set that to a size 8, but let's go ahead and make it bold. And then we have the column headings as well, which are the same size. Let's make them a 9, just a little bit bigger, and we'll make them bold as well. Let's regenerate our preview and see what we've got. We've got our font still as Helvetica. We do want to go ahead and change that over to Arial. A little lighter weight font, but easier to read, especially when it's a smaller text. So we can see we've got this all fitting in a little bit better, but these totals are pretty hard to read when they're bold and small. So let's go ahead and we'll pump this up to 9 as well. And now we can read our totals. We can almost read our headers. Maybe we want to go ahead and take a look at putting those back at 10. And we'll play with that until we have it where we like it. So those are fairly readable now. Our active projects are fairly readable. And we can go ahead and move forward with taking a look at our titles. So now we need to change the title here. This is over under billing. And this will be by project. And just because I don't necessarily need to see it in text, I'd rather see it in a short date. Okay, so for Sage Timberline Construction, we have an over-under billing by project as of 6/20/2023. Not a huge fan of our fonts up there, so let's take a look at those. We want to go ahead and change those over to Arial as well. And I don't like how much bigger than the rest of the report they are. So we'll leave the actual title itself as size 14 because we don't really have too much below it. Maybe we'll drop that down to 12 and 12. And then we'll do 11 and 11. And let's take a look at that. There we go. This all feels pretty well in balance now. So we've got our company name, over under billing as our title, by project, and as of date. There's still a little bit I don't like. I'm not a huge fan that we didn't bold these. And subtitle 2, I think I'd rather see be size 10 and italic. Okay, so we can see how that's changed. We've emphasized the as of, but we've made it a little bit smaller. We've got all of the data on one print preview page. We've got all of the data quite viewable here as well. Again, the fonts are a little bit small, but when you have so many columns, you do have a few things that you're just kind of stuck with. I think that wraps up for today, and thanks everybody for watching.